If you bought an $80,000 luxury car for the price of a used Corolla, your first instinct would be to assume something is horribly wrong with it. And most of the time, that instinct would save you from a financial disaster. Because in the luxury world, depreciation isn't just about age. It's a warning label attached to complicated engineering, expensive parts, and ownership costs that can quietly bleed your wallet dry. But here's the uncomfortable truth: the market doesn't price in very well. Some luxury cars crash in value not because they're unreliable, but because they were built for a different era of buyers. An era before touchscreens, subscription features, and cost-cutting platforms took over. These cars were engineered when brands still chased durability at high speed, thermal stability on long highway runs, and drivetrain longevity under real load, not just passing a warranty period. That's why a few luxury cars can lose over 80% of their value and still outlive most modern vehicles you see on the road today. The problem is, they're buried under a sea of flashy money pits that look just as tempting and cost just as little. But here's the good news: I've already done the digging for you, and today I'm showing you the exact luxury cars that lost 80% of their value and still refuse to die, so you don't miss the few real bargains hiding in a market full of expensive mistakes. Let me start with a car that looks like the worst decision on this entire list. A V8 luxury flagship most people are terrified to own, because once you see why this one still refuses to die, everything you thought you knew about cheap luxury is about to get uncomfortable. The BMW E38 7 Series, a weapon in disguise. This is the kind of car that looks like a financial trap from 10 miles away. A full-size BMW flagship with a V8, leather everywhere, and a badge that screams expensive problems. Most people see one listed for $5 or $6 grand and assume it's about to self-destruct the moment they turn the key. And that fear is exactly why this car lost over 80% of its original value. When this 7 Series was new, it was engineered to survive sustained high-speed driving and long-term abuse, not just make it past a warranty period. Adjusted for inflation, you're looking at a six-figure luxury sedan that was overbuilt by today's standards, which is exactly why it can lose over 80% of its value and still outlast many modern luxury cars. The reason this BMW refuses to die comes down to one thing: the drivetrain. The M62 4.4-liter V8 paired with the ZF 5-speed automatic comes from an era before fragile turbos and experimental tech took over. This combo is proven to handle real mileage when serviced, with plenty of these cars quietly crossing 200,000 miles, while newer luxury sedans are already dealing with drivetrain issues. The only real reason these cars get labeled unreliable is the cooling system. BMW used plastic components that become brittle with age, and when those fail, owners blame the entire car instead of the cheap parts that caused the problem. Replace the radiator neck, expansion tank, and hoses once with upgraded components, and you remove the single biggest reason these cars end up scrapped. That small fix is why some E38s are still running strong decades later, while flashier luxury cars from the same era are long gone. So what you're really buying for 5 to 10 grand isn't a cheap old BMW. You're buying into a car that already took its depreciation hit, still drives like a proper flagship, and can outlast most modern luxury sedans when you remove the known weak links. The first owner paid for the badge, the second owner gets the engineering. And if you think a German flagship aging this well is surprising, the next one is a luxury V8 nobody bragged about, and that's exactly why it's still quietly winning. The Infiniti Q45, the quiet king no one crowned. This is the kind of luxury car people ignore until it outlives everything else in the parking lot. A V8 Japanese flagship that never had the badge prestige of BMW or Mercedes, which is exactly why it lost over 80% of its value and now sells for basic commuter car money. When it was new, the Q45 was Nissan's no-compromise luxury sedan, built to compete with the 7 Series and S-Class on durability, not flash. Today, clean examples sit in the $4,000 to $8,000 range, not because they're fragile, but because the market never cared about the Infiniti badge the way it cared about German logos. The reason these Q45s are still on the road has less to do with hype, and more to do with how conservatively Nissan engineered the car. The VK45 V8 wasn't designed to chase headline horsepower numbers or impress reviewers with gimmicks. It was built for smooth, low-stress operation at highway speeds, which is exactly why these engines tend to age quietly instead of falling apart dramatically. Pair that with a transmission that wasn't pushed to its limits from the factory, and you get a luxury sedan that keeps going long after trendier rivals start stacking warning lights on the dash. The hidden advantage here is ownership cost. Insurance is typically lower than comparable German luxury sedans, parts pricing is more reasonable, and you're not paying the European luxury tax every time something needs attention. So, you end up with a full-size luxury sedan that already took its 80% depreciation hit and still has the mechanical backbone to keep going. Now let's flip the script, because the next car doesn't survive because it's bold or flashy. It survives because most people never even notice it exists. The Acura RL, elegance with no audience. This car could change your finances, and most people don't even realize it's a luxury car. The Acura RL never had the badge hype, which is exactly why it lost close to 80% of its value. A sedan that's stickered in the $45,000 to $55,000 range now sells for $5,000 to $10,000, not because it's fragile, but because the market ignored it from day one. That kind of depreciation usually signals danger. In this case, it signals opportunity. The reason the RL keeps surviving where other cheap luxury cars fall apart comes down to how Honda designed the fundamentals. The J-Series V6 in this car isn't a fragile, high-strung engine built to impress on paper. It's a long-running platform that's proven itself across countless Hondas and Acuras, which is why parts availability and long-term durability are such a big advantage here. And the SHAWD system in this generation isn't some software trick layered on top of weak hardware. It's a mechanically driven torque vectoring system that was engineered to handle real-world wear over time, not just perform in a brochure comparison. While other luxury brands were stacking complexity onto already stressed drivetrains, Acura focused on building systems that could take miles without becoming a science project to keep alive. So, for used economy car money, you're stepping into a full-size luxury sedan that already took its massive depreciation hit, still delivers quiet highway comfort, and has the mechanical backbone to keep showing up every morning. It's not a status symbol, but in the cheap luxury market, reliability is the real flex. And if you think low-key sedans can hide durability, wait until you see the luxury SUV that's been hiding one of the toughest platforms ever built. The Lexus GX470, the soft-spoken juggernaut. This is one of the biggest "how is this still this cheap" vehicles on the used market. A body-on-frame luxury SUV built on Land Cruiser DNA that now trades hands for the price of a basic crossover. Most buyers never look twice at the GX470 because it doesn't advertise toughness, but that's exactly why it lost over 80% of its value without losing the durability underneath. Here's what the market looks like right now. Clean GX470s from this era routinely show up in the $12,000 to $18,000 range, depending on mileage and condition. That's economy SUV money for a platform that was engineered to survive real-world abuse, not just suburban errands. The price collapse has nothing to do with mechanical weakness. It's the penalty for wearing a luxury badge in a segment where buyers worship rugged branding. The reason this truck refuses to die is structural, not cosmetic. Under the soft leather interior is a body-on-frame chassis designed for load, impact, and long-term stress. That foundation is why these SUVs keep showing up with high mileage and tight drivetrains, while lighter unibody luxury crossovers from the same era are already aging out. Because the GX470 flies under the radar, demand stays lower than comparable Toyota-branded trucks, which keeps resale stable at the bottom. In other words, you're buying near the floor of its depreciation curve. Drive it for years, and you're far more likely to get most of your money back than you would with a newer luxury SUV that's still bleeding value. So you're not paying for hype or a reputation. You're buying the durability in disguise after depreciation already did its damage. But the next one is where expectations completely fall apart, because on paper, this car should have been a disaster, and somehow it wasn't. the Volvo S80 V8, a flagship left standing. Most buyers assumed a Swedish V8 flagship would age badly, be expensive to own, and disappear from the road in a few years. That assumption crushed its resale value, and that's exactly why this car lost over 80% of its original price while still refusing to go away. When the S80 V8 was new, it was Volvo's top-tier executive car, priced right alongside the German midsize luxury sedans and loaded with safety tech and comfort features. Today, clean examples routinely show up in the $5,000 to $9,000 range. That kind of drop usually signals a reliability problem. In this case, it signals confusion. The market never knew what to do with a Volvo wearing a V8, so it punished the car on price instead of on durability. What actually keeps these cars alive is how they were engineered. The V8 was co-developed with Yamaha and tuned for smooth, low-stress highway operation rather than headline horsepower. Pair that with a conservative automatic and Volvo's long-running AWD system, and you get a drivetrain that favors longevity over drama. These cars don't go viral for performance numbers, but they quietly stack miles when basic maintenance is done. Layer in Volvo's famously overbuilt safety structure and conservative chassis tuning, and you end up with a luxury sedan that ages in a calm, predictable way instead of falling apart in spectacular fashion. It never became trendy. It never became desirable, and that's exactly why it's still sitting on the road today after the market decided it wasn't cool enough to care about. And if that Swedish V8 surprised you, the final one is the kind of German luxury car everyone warns you about, for reasons that aren't as simple as people think. The Mercedes-Benz E-Class W212, luxury without the circus. People see this generation of E-Class sitting in the $7,000 to $12,000 range and assume it's there because something expensive is about to go wrong. In reality, this car fell off a pricing cliff because luxury sedans from this era aged out of lease culture all at once. When the newer body style dropped, the previous generation got dumped. Regardless of how solid the underlying platform actually was, the versions that refuse to die are the simpler powertrains from this generation. These drivetrains were designed before Mercedes went all in on small, highly stressed turbo motors, and they've shown far better long-term behavior in real-world use. When they're serviced on schedule, they don't develop the same cascade of failures that later downsized engines became known for. What makes this E-Class a survivor isn't hype or nostalgia, it's stability. The chassis was engineered for long-distance comfort and structural durability, and the mechanical layout from this era has proven calmer to live with than both the generation before it and the tech-heavy models that came after. Once you're past the depreciation cliff, ownership becomes far more predictable than the reputation suggests. Here's the part most people get wrong. These cars don't fall apart because they're bad Mercedes. They fall apart when they get treated like disposable cheap luxury, and basic service gets skipped. The ones still on the road today are proof that when this platform is maintained, it quietly racks up miles instead of turning into a rolling warning light. So instead of paying for the newest badge and taking the biggest depreciation hit, you're stepping into a Mercedes that already absorbed that loss and still delivers the core reason people bought these cars in the first place: quiet, stable highway comfort that doesn't fall apart the moment the warranty is gone. If there's one pattern across every car on this list, it's this: depreciation doesn't kill great engineering. Fear does. The market panics the moment a luxury car ages out of fashion, a new body style drops, or a badge loses its shine. Prices collapse, people walk away. And quietly, the few models that were actually built to last keep showing up every morning, doing the job they were engineered to do long after the hype is gone. This is why cheap luxury is dangerous for most buyers, and a goldmine for the few who know where to look. You're not buying status anymore. You're buying what's left after status leaves the building. Engines that were overbuilt, platforms designed for real mileage, and cars that already took their biggest financial hit before you ever touch the keys. So the next time you see a luxury car listed for commuter car money, you won't just see a deal or a disaster. You'll know the difference. Now I'm curious. Out of every car on this list, which one surprised you the most, and which one would you actually trust with your own money? Drop it in the comments. And if you want more breakdowns like this, hit subscribe and I'll see you in the next one.